Honorable Ogutu Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to take this chance to thank Honorable Chebukuti for this petition. I consider, Mr. Speaker, this petition a reminder of what we ought to do as a nation and also as a House in terms of policy. Mr. Speaker, I will also want to say that as the committee looks at the petition, there are key issues that they may want to also consider. Number one, as a nation, we have done very well in responding to climate change issues. We have planted the trees. In fact, most places, like if you go the Kisii region, you may think you are in a forest. But then the trees are not the right ones. So they may want to discuss on this, the type of species that need to be really encouraged, because that is something very important. I also would like to ask for the committee to consider, as a country, how far are we in paying farmers as part of the motivation through the climate money. I know some countries have gone far because farmers are really dedicating their land, especially in regions where the land is so small, to make sure that there are trees on the ground. Can they be motivated? This is a long overdue issue that doesn't seem to have worked in Kenya. Finally, the Speaker I will also want the committee to consider how to deal with the massive consequences of climate change. Flooding being one of them, landslide being another one. Last 2 years, in fact, we experienced serious landslides in this nation, including areas that had never experienced landslides before. What can, as a committee, recommend, especially to the institutions, including the county government?
Okay.
The Speaker, I support.
All right, next order. What is it, honorable members? I mean, we have that, you know, we are not yet in the real business of the House. Okay, but because of, I see there is a lot of interest. The only problem is the members who are given an opportunity spoke too much, and therefore denied the rest of the membership an opportunity. If you can do not a minute, half a minute each, you will put yourself on record. So I might then start with Honorable Wanjala. Yes, and then we will go to very quickly, just very quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance. Mr. Speaker, the issue of climate has really affected we people who are living along the lake. Now, even today, as we have been being flooded by the...
Also control the climatic area within, very close to where you are, by putting up that gadget nicely. Yes, proceed now, you see.
We people who live even along the lake, Mr. Speaker, now another phenomenon is that the water is coming from the lake into people's homes. And Mr. Speaker, our engineers have failed even to help us because they don't want to listen to locals for solutions. The meanders of the rivers should be drained. Mr. Speaker, the rivers should be dredged because they have silted since since the world was created.
I was wondering how the independence
since the world was created, nobody has ever desilted the mouths of the rivers, the deltas, into the lake. So they are silted to the core. The water from the rivers do not move into the lake. Instead, it goes back and flows into people's homes. So these are the issues that are affecting us. But our engineers are sleeping. The Ministry of Water is sleeping.
Okay. The rest you can go and ask in the committee when it's brought there. Honorable Wanjira. And it is only half a minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, even for this opportunity. I want to thank Honorable Chepkut for this petition, and my contribution to it, Mr. Speaker, will be, I attended COP20 in Lima in Peru. There have been other consequent ones. This last year was supposed to be in Glasgow. Kenya has always participated. And so for me, what I would want to see this petition yield is the breaking down of the good resolutions that are done out there, and they are domesticated in this country. We want to see actual budgetary interventions in terms of improving, because, Mr. Speaker, the link between climatic changes is directly related to the SDGs, and the UN has picked it as an issue in terms of contributing to poverty, to disease, to better living. So I would hope that these good resolutions out there, the committee can take time to look at what has been agreed out there and domesticate it to this country so that it fits what we are talking about. But I support the petition.
Honorable Kangogo. Then I come this way, and then we probably will be.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the petition of Chepkut. And Mr. Speaker, coming from also a place where there is a serious deforestation, that is cutting Cherangani and Babut forest, Mr. Speaker, there must be a balance between, even when you are talking about 10% forest cover, and the livelihood of people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have seen some cases where people have been chased from the forest, like in my place, but they have not been settled elsewhere. No. So we need to balance, even as we look at these issues of climate change, and also the rights of individuals, Mr. Speaker, because in the Bill of Rights, the first right is a right to life, Mr. Speaker. So I would really want that even as we handle this petition,
the other petition you can make
also human rights.
Can make the one for resettlement of people. Now we've heard about the lake issues. Let's go to the mangrove and close it. Mangrove. Fairly straightforward. Haven't you been given Honorable Baya the
Yes, thank you very much, Speaker. I would like to speak to that petition and say this. There are 3 or 4 companies in Mombasa and the coast that still use firewood to fire up their production. What this has done is that people are cutting all the cashew trees, all the trees, the local trees available there, so that they can sell to these factories, so that they can produce whatever they want to produce. I think there's a need to audit, and audit these people who actually license companies, which up to today, while government is telling homes not to use firewood and use gas, there are still companies today at the coast that use firewood as a fuel. And this is actually leading to huge deforestation. So when we are talking about forest cover, we should also look at who is deforesting and what policies and who are these officers that are allowing people to use fuel, wood fuel, as a means to power plants. This should stop, because it is actually taken away all the cashew trees that we have. Why? Because people are selling to these factories. I thank you.
Next order. Honorable members, we have flogged it too much.
Order number 5, papers.
The Leader of Majority Party.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, the 13th of May, 2021, in the morning sitting. The number 1 is the reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect to the following institutions for the year ended 30th of June 2020, and the certificates therein. Number 1, State Department for Gender. Number 2, the State Department for Mining. Number 3, the State Department for Wildlife. Number 4, the State Department for Regional and Northern Corridor Development. Number 5, the State Department for Labor. Number 6, the State Department for Fisheries, Aquaculture, and the Blue Economy. Number 7, the State Department for Women Enterprises Fund. Number 8, Pwani University. Number 9, the Street Families Rehabilitation Trust Fund. 10, Kenya Pipeline Company Limited. Number 11, the National Housing Corporation. Number 12, the revenue statements for Ministry of Defense. Number 13, Witness Protection Agency. Number 14, Treasury Main Clearance Fund under the National Treasury. And lastly, the National Gender and Equality Commission. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Under that, we have something from you, the Honorable Leader of Majority.
Sure.
Yes, proceed.
Mheshimiwa Spika, naomba kutoa arifa ya hoja ifuatayo kwamba kwa mujibu wa kanuni ya 25 kuhusu mgeni mashuhuri, shukrani za Bunge la Taifa zinakiliwe kwa ajili ya hotuba ya Mheshimiwa Samia Suluhu Hassan, Rais wa Jamhuri ya Muungano wa Tanzania, iliyotolewa katika kikao cha pamoja cha bunge ya Jamhuri ya Kenya mnamo Jumatano tarehe 5 Mei 2021. Asante Bwana Spika.
Utahitaji majadiliano iwe katika lugha ya Kiswahili ama
ingekuwa
ama tutachanganya?
Tungependelea sana na ningewaomba wajumbe tuweze kujionyesha pia ile changamoto tupatiwa na Mheshimiwa Rais, pia aone kwamba Wakenya wamechangamka na wameweza kujadili kwa Kiswahili kama vile alivyotuhutubia kwa Kiswahili.
Sababu ya mimi kukupatia hiyo fursa ikiwa kiongozi alio wengi bungeni, kwa sababu niliona hapo mbele ulikuwa unaisoma hiyo taarifa, so nilikuwa nataka kuona kama wewe unaweza kuiendesha bila kuisoma, na nikaona umefaulu.
Bwana Spika, pengine huna habari kwamba nilisomea shule ya upili, somea huko Mombasa. Kwa hivyo Kiswahili ninakielewa. Na tukifika wakati huo jioni, watu watajionyesha vile wanaelewa.
Nani huyo ako na hoja ya nidhamu? Ni mjumbe wa Soi.
Yes, asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Kiongozi ya walio wengi amesema kwamba angependa tujionyeshe. Ni vipi tutajionyesha? Inafaa afafanue ili tupate kujua ama ni Kiswahili sanifu imemkosea.
Umesema vipi? Umesemaje? Sikukusikiza vizuri. Kulikuwa na
yaani, kwa sababu umesikiza huyu mbunge wa Marakwet. Nilikuwa nasema mbunge wa Kipipiri ambaye pia ni kiongozi ya walio wengi, hapo katika taarifa yake amesema kwamba angependa tujionyeshe, lakini hajafafanua vipi tutajionyesha, Mr. Speaker, kama ni kwa vitendo ama kwa mavazi ama ni vipi, ama ni Kiswahili imemchanganya.
Mimi naona kama ni Kiswahili imekuchanganya wewe mwenyewe, kwa sababu yeye amesema. So tutaendelea. Yule ni mjumbe wa wapi? Mjumbe wa Embakasi South. Hebu tukusikize.
Mheshimiwa Spika, na kushukuru sana kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia hili jambo ama kuhusu.
Hakuna mchango kwa sasa. Tunashughulikia tu ni notice of motion.
Nilikuwa nataka kumunga mkono ndugu yangu. Mheshimiwa Spika, na nilikuwa namunga mkono ndugu yangu kiongozi wa walo wengi kwa kuwakilisha huu mswada ili tuweze ama ili jambo ili tuweze kuzungumzia hotuba.
Nao utapata hiyo nafasi ya kuchangia na kumunga mkono, lakini kwa sasa tu ni hoja ameweka mbele ya bunge. So tutakupatia nafasi na fursa ikifika wakati wa kuchangia.
Nashukuru na naunga mkono. Asante. Nashukuru na nimeunga mkono.
Lakini kati ya sasa na wakati tutaanza majadiliano, tutakuomba kwamba ukae pia karibu na kamusi ili upige msasa lugha yako. Ndio mambo itaenda kwa njia. Sijasema umezungumza vibaya, lakini nasema ni kwa wabunge wote ambao wako hapa, muendelee kupiga msasa lugha ili ikifika wakati wa kuchangia mchangie kwa njia nzuri. Hoja gani? Kuna hoja mingi ya nidhamu, sielewi. Ni huyo ni Mheshimiwa Gathuri. Hebu nisikie una hoja gani Gathuri?
Asante sana Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, mimi nilikuwa nauliza wakati tulizindua kanuni mpya za bunge ile standing orders. Siku ya Alhamisi tulikuwa tunaongea Kiswahili katika hili bunge. Kwa hivyo mimi ningeomba tena turudie hivyo tu siku ya Alhamisi kama ni asubuhi, ndio sababu tunakuanga na mijadala ya wabunge binafsi. Tuwe tunajadili katika lugha ya Kiswahili. Ndio na sisi pia wale wenzetu wanatupigia kura waweze kufuata ya ile kazi tunafanya hapa bungeni.
Hiyo ni sawa, lakini hamna mjumbe ambaye amekatazwa kuzungumza katika lugha. lakini najua kwamba tulichanganywa na mambo ya corona na mambo zingine kama hivyo, na hata sijapata kujua mjumbe mmoja ambaye ameweza kusema hiyo corona tutaiitaje kwa Kiswahili, lakini tuendelee. Let's go to the next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
And order, Honorable Millie Odhiambo. There is nothing called hoja ya madamu. It's only hoja ya nidhamu. So questions, we go to questions now, honorable members. And we will start with questions. I see there is no question by, there is a question by private notice by the member for Magarini, Honorable Michael Kingi. Then we'll go to the ordinary questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question. Meet the burial expenses and compensated for the loss of life occasioned by negligence on the part of Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KPLC. 2, what disciplinary action does the minister plan to take on the officers of KPLC Malindi substation for negligence and unresponsiveness, considering that the matter of the fallen pole had been reported to KPLC severally prior to the incident? Lastly, could the Cabinet Secretary give an undertaking that KPLC will urgently replace the said pole and all other disintegrating electric pole in the entire Magarini constituency to avert the looming danger posed by this pole? Thank you.
Let's go to the next member with a question. And that is that's the Honorable Lagod, which is not in. So we take it to the next sitting. Let's have the member for Ainapkwe. And the member for Nyeri should be preparing himself. Honorable Chepkut. Let Honorable Chepkut be given the mic.
I want to ask question number 158 of 2021, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Lands and Physical Planning. 1, what measures has the ministry put in place to digitalize land records at county, that is Eldoret, and sub-counties levels to enable easier access to services related to land matters? 2, what specific affirmative and other measures is the government taking to assist residents of Kipkabos, Barini, Leldot, Plateau, Lamaon, Kileges, Losirwa, Leldot, Nyakenywa, Munyaka, and Ban Forest, particularly Job and Wainaina in Ainapkwe constituency was in Gishu County, to enable them secure their title deeds and to secure their livelihood through settlement and issuance of title deeds. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very well, very well. Now, that one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Lands, and the previous one by the member for Magarini will be replied to before the Committee on Energy. Now we go to the next member, that is the member for Nyeri Town, Honorable Ngunjiri Wambugu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I want to start by clarifying that I'm asking this question as a member of Parliament for Nyeri Town to avoid confusion. No, last time I asked a question and I was told I shouldn't ask because I'm in the committee. So I'm asking question number 159 of 2021. And the question I'm asking is, could the Cabinet Secretary explain the criteria used to determine the teachers who receive enhanced house allowance in Nyeri Town constituency? Question number 2. What are the reasons and or circumstances that led to teachers from some schools, such as Kirimara and Shania Primary Schools and others, receiving the said allowance, which was then later withdrawn. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research, which you actually serve. So probably that will make it even easier and faster. Now, next will be the member for Soy, the Honorable Caleb Kositany.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 163 of 2021, directed at the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Energy. Roman 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a report detailing the implementation status of the last mile connectivity program in Soy constituency? Roman 2, could the Cabinet Secretary also provide electrification plan for the public institutions, including public primary and secondary schools, which are yet to be connected to electricity in Segero, Moisbridge, Ziwa, Soy, Kapkures, and Kipsomba wards, dispensaries in Soy constituency, and indicate the status of electricity connectivity to the said institutions. Roman 3, Mr. Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary further provide the electrification plan intended to cover the following villages: Kapchorwa, Mgwen, Chemamul, Mararen, Simit, Darfur, Kaboch, Kamgetuny, Chelabal, Chobosta, Lalakin, and Kapkerek villages, and the Rajambili Center. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Energy, and I hope you are sure about Darfur. That is the Darfur within Soy, not any other. Okay, so we go to the member for Kabuchai, Honorable Majimbo Kalasinga.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 165 of 2021 on the order paper, the Cabinet Secretary for Energy. What measures is the ministry putting in place to ensure the compensation of Mwalimu Kennedy Simiyu Wanyama of ID number 1258-1139, who died as a result of the electrocution, Mr. Speaker, by the live electric cables at Nalondo area of Kapchai constituency on 22nd of April 2021. During the repair exercise by the Kenya Power and Lighting Company, KPLC, staff who were using a motor vehicle registration number KBL 153G to pull the cable, Mr. Speaker. 2, when is the said compensation expected to be paid, and could the Cabinet Secretary provide the amount of money the family of the late victims is expected to receive from KBLC compensation for the negligence caused by the employees? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Energy. Now we go to the next segment, which is statement requests, and the personal statement is also included there. And also there will be a statement by the chairperson of Committee on Energy CDF. So we start with the Honorable Samuel Atandi, who is requesting for a statement. Honorable Atandi, let's confirm if that one is working. I don't think it is. Go to the other one and make sure that you are on your mask so that you don't...
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, before I read my statement, I want to notify you that I've asked a question twice on this floor of the House, and I've never received the answers. The last time you directed the Leader of Majority to ensure that the chairperson of the Department of Finance and National Planning supplies me with the answer to the questions that I raised.
Okay, I remember it, so I will follow it up with the Leader of Majority now.
And it has never been done, Honorable Speaker.
Okay, noted. So proceed with that statement request.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Request for statement on insecurity in Dondi Market, Baragulu sublocation, Alego Songa constituency. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44.2, subsection C, I wish to request a statement from the Chairperson Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding insecurity at Dondi Market, Alego Songa constituency. Honorable Speaker, there has been persistent insecurity at Dondi Market in Alego Songa constituency, where breaking of shops and continuous brutal killings of security guards employed by traders and businessmen in the said market, having been reported several times by the community and the same business community at the Siaya Police Station and Nyangoma Police Station. It is of great concern that this trend has led to loss of lives and property, particularly those belonging to business women and men. And to mention a few, the businesses of Mrs. Elizabeth Abuanji and Mrs. Carolina Kuka, among others. The latest attack happened on 29th April 2021, where two night guards, namely Mr. Justus Etiang and Mr. Kennedy Eoret, were brutally murdered at night by thugs. On this occasion, two shops belonging to Mr. Freddy Koiye and Mr. Ndolo Jangia were broken into and goods of unknown amount stolen. Honorable Speaker, it is on this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson, Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security, on the following. One, could the chairperson state whether there have been investigations carried out in the persistent insecurity and theft of goods and breaking in of shops at Dondi Market in Alego Songa that has led to brutal killings of several security guards employed by traders and businessmen in the area? Two, when will the culprits be apprehended, and what measures have been put in place by the government to curb insecurity in the said area, among others, to ensure that the security officers that work with the community to help them identify criminals terrorizing the community? Three, could the government consider enhancing security personnel in the Karemo Assistant County Commissioner's Office, which is the nearer police base in the area, to ensure that officers embark on night patrol? And lastly, Honorable Speaker, could the chairperson explain whether there is any role which has been played by the local administration officers in the area, such as the assistant chief for Baragulu sub-location and the chief for the Southeast Alego location, over these insecurity incidences? And if any, what action has been taken, or what action will be taken against those officers involved? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. Then we go to the next statement. The member for Laisamis, who wishes to issue a personal statement. Is he in the House? Honorable Malimo Arbele? Okay. If he is not, then we proceed to the statement by the chairperson of the Select Committee on National Government, CDF, Constituency Development Fund, on the status of receipts of disbursement of the National Government Development Fund as at 2021, 12th May.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to give an update to members on the status of disbursements to the Constituency Development Fund for the financial year 2020, 2021, and previous years, Mr. Speaker. First, Mr. Speaker, I wish to remind members that fund allocation and receipts to date for financial year 2020-2021, which is Kenya shillings 41 billion 41.7148 billion has been received by the fund. Mr. Speaker, you'll recall Section 39(2) of the Act provides that the disbursement of funds to the constituency fund account shall be effected at the beginning of the first quarter of each financial year, with an initial amount equivalent to 25% of the annual allocation for the constituency, and thereafter the constituency fund account shall be replenished in 3 equal installments at the beginning of the second, third, and fourth quarters of the financial year. Mr. Speaker, because of the challenges we had in the country, it was not possible to disperse in this manner. But the Treasury disbursed 2 billion every week, 2 billion shillings every week, Mr. Speaker, between August and May 10. To be specific, between August, let me just get the exact date, Mr. Speaker. Between 11th of August 2020 and 10th May 2021, we have received a total of 41 billion 714,800,000, which was allocated to CDF for the entire financial year. Mr. Speaker, that means that the law has been complied with to that extent as per Section 32, subsection 2 of the CDF Act. Mr. Speaker, this is how the amount has been given to the constituencies. 36 billion 603 million has been disbursed to constituencies, while 1.365 billion has been disbursed to the board secretariat. The board is in the process of disbursing at the moment 3.7148 billion, which was received on the 5th and 10th of May to wrap up the entire financial year allocation. Mr. Speaker, 20 billion 151 million has been disbursed to constituencies against this financial year, 2020-2021, budget allocation. Second, 16 billion has been disbursed, 16 billion 481 million 926,000 has been disbursed to constituencies with respect to balances for previous financial years, Mr. Speaker. You will recall that last financial year, so much was carried forward, but this has had to be disbursed against this year's allocation. The Speaker, 1.365 billion has been disbursed to the board secretariat, and 3.751 disbursement is in progress, as I said earlier. So each member, Mr. Speaker, as of early next week, if the disbursement doesn't conclude today, as of early next week, each member should have received about 80 million, Mr. Speaker, in their kitty on average. Mr. Speaker, the full breakdown of the disbursement is given in a table here, which is detailed, and because I'm going to table this, I don't need to go through the entire table, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have also, as I undertook previously, I have also given names of all the constituencies and amounts received by each constituency. And as I said, there's a table here which gives the current amount, the status of the amount per constituency, what is in progress, that the amount that is to be released in the next 1 or 2 days, Mr. Speaker. Then the last column is the grand total per constituency. Some constituencies have received even more than 80 million, up to 90. Others up to 80. So on average, at least each constituency would have received 80 million, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to assure members that the balance of 13.7 billion, which was captured in the supplementary budget, will continue. The Cabinet Secretary for the Treasury has assured the committee that the weekly disbursement of 2 billion will continue, and by end of June, by 30th of June, Mr. Speaker, these disbursements would have been concluded, and each constituency would have received their share of the allocation of CDF. So we want to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that nothing is carried forward from this financial year to the next financial year. And this is an understanding we have had with the Treasury. We hope that what happened in the previous years is not going to happen now. But we are working together, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that apart from what was captured in the supplementary budget, Mr. Speaker, there's the element of 4.9 billion, which is brought forward from the previous years, 2010, 2011, 2013, 12, and 2014, 2015, Mr. Speaker. These arrears, Mr. Speaker, according to the Treasury, was supposed to be subject to discussion, audit, before it is released. But as you are aware, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to projects in CDF, and particularly there's a provision in Section 6 and Section 7, and I want to invite members to look at that because I'm not going to make reference to it now. If you look at Section 6 and 7, it makes it clear that all funds for CDF, whether carried forward or not carried forward, will have to be released to the constituencies. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, what we only require is verification, an audit and verification to ensure that actually this amount that was brought forward is due to certain constituencies for particular projects, and if it has not been released, it should be released, Mr. Speaker. So we'll be appealing for this also to be captured, if there will be supplementary to or in the main budget, so that we have to make sure that no money is carried forward, Mr. Speaker. And I think this is what I wanted to make the assurance to members. I want to thank the Treasury because I think the Treasury kept their word of making weekly disbursements. And I also want to urge colleagues to get to spend these funds towards the projects as earmarked, so that we make strides, in developing our area, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
But again, Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude by saying, as the year is drawing to the end, Mr. Speaker, next year is an election year. I want to urge members to prepare early, to identify projects early. If you have continuing projects, identify them. If you have new projects, identify them early, so that when we close the year, you would immediately present the projects for funding, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Okay. That statement, honestly, honorable members, is self-explanatory. We probably would not need to take a lot of time on it. I will just give, let's have the member for, is it Kitui East? Kitui South, sorry. Honorable Nyamai.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Chair, CDF, the Honorable Afula Munyinyi. He has done a very good job to tell us where we are, and also that to thank Treasury for keeping their word. We know that times are hard with COVID-19, but we'd like to thank them for keeping their word, for ensuring that we get the weekly disbursements. I would like to encourage the Chair to ensure that by the end of the financial year, we get as much as possible so that we are able to keep our promises, ensure that the projects that we have already started implementing and all the promises that we have made to wananchi, that we are able to fulfill our promises. It is only through working through CDF that members of parliament make it back to this house. So I would like to thank the Chair and also encourage other members of parliament to be supportive to the Chair, who is doing a very good job.
Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Atandi.
Speaker, thank you very much. Speaker, I want to thank the Chair, CDF, for that statement and the information he has given us on disbursements. But Chair, there's something which I think he needs to clarify. There's the 4.7 billion, which is mentioned and which is not captured in the budgets. What we did in the last supplementary was to bring back 13.7 billion, which will push us up, push the disbursements by the end of the financial year to around 110 million per constituency. That means there's about 16 to 17 million, which is not in the budget. And I think this is where really the chairman of CDF needs to inform the House how that money will be realized by members. Because if that is not sorted out, Honorable Speaker, we are going to have a shortage of our locations, and members will be surprised when the financial year ends and you are in a shortage of about 20 million, which is not in the budget. So I think, Chair, budget needs to make that clarification.
Okay. Seems to be a fairly straightforward.
And secondly, Chair, because I sit in the budget committee, I think that the CDF committee needs to do more more than waiting to present statements of disbursements. When we were doing supplementary budget, I must say that I did not like the performance of the CDF committee before us. They need to push the Treasury, they need to push the budget committee, because we did this job on their behalf. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. So then I really don't think some of these things you can respond to in the next statement that you'll be giving. Just note them. That will be the statement that you will give, because you'll be giving it on, unless it's a straightforward, that's actually a fairly straightforward, the 4.7 billion. And then we end that one.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I know that CDF is not just for the CDF committee, it's for the entire House, all the members of this House. So Budget Committee should not wait to be pushed, Mheshimiwa. And I want to appeal to Honorable Atandi. While I appreciate what you did, but you should not wait to be pushed to capture this in the budget. But Mr. Speaker, the 4.9 billion alluded to, Mr. Speaker, will not be 18 or 20 million as stated by Honorable Atandi. The amount of 13.7 billion given to all constituencies will be about 48 million per constituency. From where we are, Mr. Speaker, at above 80, we will therefore be at about 128 when we receive this. And we are hoping to have received this by end of June. We will be at about 128 million per constituency, Mr. Speaker. The balance which I said, it can either be captured in supplementary 2 or in the main budget, Mr. Speaker. But there's that assurance, that comfort from section 6 and 7 to the effect that the money will not be lost, Mr. Speaker. But there has to be verification to ensure that the money is due to some specific projects, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so then we move to the next order, please.
Order number 8, the Law of Succession Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2019, second reading. Question to be put.
This one we had resolved it, so I proceed to put the question. I put the question, which is that the Law of Succession Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 75 of 2019, be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Law of Succession Act.
What is it, Honorable Bawen? You seem to be... What is it, Honorable Bawen?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I apologize for interrupting you. Mr. Speaker, I want to raise a serious fundamental national issue, Mr. Speaker, and especially, Mr. Speaker, what is happening at the Mombasa Road. Mr. Speaker, we want to appreciate the efforts put by the government to construct a road from Mulolongo, Mr. Speaker, to Westlands. But, Mr. Speaker, the Chinese contractor on the ground, Mr. Speaker, has really caused a mayhem and their nightmares to the people using Mombasa Road, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there are members in this House. Mr. Speaker, just 1 minute, Mr. Speaker.
You know what I want you to do? I'm suggesting that you raise it in the afternoon so that we get through the rigors of how you can raise it, because what you are doing here is fairly unprocedural. Of course, we have heard what you are saying, but it is going to be difficult for us to allow you to proceed. I would want to ask you to approach the table so that you can be given the best way of raising it, and you raise it in the afternoon. So we go to the next order.
Order number 9, Committee of the Whole House.
Honorable members, this is a fairly brief committee, so please be very keen so that we are going to finish it quickly. This is the Committee on the Land Amendment Bill 2019.
Clause 3.
I propose the question which is at clause 3 be part of the bill. And the Honorable Nyama, you have an amendment? Proceed. Proceed. What number is your chair? 6, you have it.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on this important bill, Honorable Speaker, I rise to move the amendment to land amendment by deleting clause 3 and substituting, therefore, the new clause as per the order paper. Honorable Speaker, the importance of this amendment is to cure what the Honorable Kengara may have missed. One, the amendment seeks to make it clear that the onus of applying for registration of public land should be placed on a public body. Two, the amendment is also necessary to align the bill to the new Physical and Land Use Planning Act of 2019. You realize that the bill as drafted referred to the Appealed Act of Physical Planning of 1996. Which has since been repealed. And 3, the amendment is also necessary to make it clear to whom, or rather, to which body the certificate of title shall be issued. That is either to the Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury, or to a certain incorporation.
Very well.
Honorable Speaker, on the same, I would like to say that the amendment that we raise here also cures the matter that had been raised by the Honorable Otiende Amolo with regard to constitutionality with regard to subdivisions. And we have also therefore deleted subsection 16 in compliance with the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, this is the only amendment that the Departmental Committee on Lands had, and I've given the justifications. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. After that detailed justification, I propose a question which is that Clause 3 be part of the bill. No, be amended as proposed by Honorable Nyamai. Sorry. I see no member interested in contributing to that, so I put the question, which is that Clause 3 be amended as proposed by the Honorable Nyamai. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. So then I put the question, which is that Clause 3 as amended be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 2.
I propose the question which is that Clause 2 be part of the bill. And I put the question which is that Clause 2 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Title.
I propose the question which is that the title be the title to the bill. I put the question which is that the title be the title to the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
I propose a question which is that Clause 1 be part of the bill. And I put the question which is that Clause 1 be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. And thus, therefore, I ask the chairperson, having finalized that, the mover, to move reporting. The mover.
Thank you.
Actually, thought the chair would be the mover, but that is, so proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I beg to move the committee to report to the House its consideration of the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 54 of 2019, and its approval, therefore, with amendments.
Very well. So then I put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 54 of 2019, and its approval thereof with amendments. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Honorable members, Mr. Speaker.
Order, members. Order. Let's have the Honorable Chairperson.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 54 of 2019, and approved the same with amendments.
Very well. So let's have the mover to move agreement with the report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I also request Honorable Kabinga Wadhayo Mwea to second the motion for agreement with the report of the Committee of the Whole House.
Very well. So let's have the Honorable Kabinga.
Honorable Kabinga Washira Wadhayo wa Mushere.
Kabinga Washira Wadhayo of Mwea.
Wa Mushere. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This is a very important bill. I second.
Very well. So then order members, I propose a question, which is that this House do agree with the committee in the said report. I put the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Many as of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Then let's have the mover of the bill to move third reading.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move that the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 54 of 2019, be now read a third time. I also request Honorable Waihenya Dirango Loyosabu to second.
Okay. Member for Oisambu.
I second, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. So then, honorable members, I propose the question, which is that the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill, number 54 of 2019, be now read a third time. Don't say you have a right.
Yes,
don't say you have a right, because the rights here are vested elsewhere. And in fact, to show you that you actually don't have a right, I will ask you to sit down as I consider whether I want to give you an opportunity at all. But since you are a first timer, I'm sure you meant that you really would wish to speak. So can you now speak?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I apologize for that. I would like to say this. This is a very important bill, that today the land that has always been taken away and grabbed because of the subdivisions and all that will now be vested in the people through either ministry or the county government, and that secures the land. But then my point, Mr. Speaker, is that when this law moves from here, I'm sure it is a law that also concerns counties. So probably it will end up in Senate. But this is a very important piece of legislation that aims at securing the lands that we have right now. How long Senate takes could determine how much land is lost between now and Senate. And my appeal to you, Mr. Speaker, as this thing is that we try to ensure that Senate fast-tracks these very important bills. We have brought many bills here, but they end up getting stuck in Senate. And yet Senate has very few people, they have a lot of time, and they are able to fast-track and ensure that the bills that come from the National Assembly and go to Senate are fast-tracked. The spirit with which the MP for Ruiru has brought this bill is such that he wants to secure what is in problem right now. But what we will face is that Senate will take a year. Probably this law will be finished in the next Parliament. But I would ask that Senate be made to fast-track.
Now,
this bill so that it helps the situation as it begets right now.
Okay,
Thank you.
Honorable Baya, yeah, of course I hear your sentiments loud and clear, but the best we can do is to make sure that if it is going to the Senate, it lands there in good time. Every member here has a Senate representative, including yourself. Now, I'm sure you can also help by consulting with your own Senate representation from your region and county that they, move with speed, as has been done here. So really, there is nothing much that the speakership can do once the matter lands in the Senate. But you've been heard loud and clear, Honorable Yah. So let's therefore proceed. So then I put the question, order. Order. You must freeze like in the fridge. Order. So then I put the question, having confirmed that we have the numbers, both within and without the chamber, that the Land Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 54 of 2019, be now read a third time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Land Act.
Very well, then we go to the next order.
Order number 10, the Narcotic, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 27 of 2020, second reading.
Yes, this one we are resuming debate, which was interrupted on Tuesday, May 11, 2021, in the afternoon sitting. I can see there is not too much interest in it, so I believe we should be finishing this thing quickly. Yeah, so do I see any interest? I don't see any interest. So therefore, can I call the mover to respond? Yes. Proceed. The mover.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, let me start by thanking all members who have contributed and those who have suggestions to enrich the provisions of this amendment bill, and that during the committee of the whole House, I expect that if there are any amendments or additional clauses, the members will bring them across for processing by this House. Honorable Speaker, it is good to note that the framework which was set for combating abuse of narcotics, drugs, and psychotropic substances is contained in the Act of 1994. But despite that, we have seen several times the same substances pass through our country. This bill, Honorable Speaker, then seeks to seal those loopholes that have been experienced though the Act is in place. Honorable Speaker, it is important to note that the enhanced provisions in the current bill is to do with punishment of those who handle narcotics or illicit drugs. Also, the fines that will emanate from the Act will be enhanced to make sure that it's punitive enough for people to fear to deal with them. Also, Honorable Speaker, to also make sure that those who assist, officers who assist in drug trafficking or concealing of those who are trafficking are going to be punished to the extent even of losing their jobs. Honorable Speaker, it also speaks to the issue of those who are dealing with the drugs outside Kenya by way of providing for information sharing between the Kenya government and foreign governments. Speaker, it's also good to note that people are hiding behind privacy information, but this
is now addressed here to limit that right to privacy so that information that is going to be shared on the issue of narcotics, especially for traffickers, can be exposed. Honorable Speaker, this bill, therefore, is so timely. I know members are quite interested. I have heard and listened to the contribution by the Deputy Majority Whip and also the member for Dagoretti South on the issue of the medicinal value of some of those substances like marijuana and industrial hemp. I expect to engage them further during the consideration of Committee of the whole House to consider if they have any amendments that are going to be beneficial to our people here in this country. So while thanking members, I'll also urge them to put in place and submit any additional amendments to enhance the bill. So with those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I beg to reply.
Very well. Let me confirm the numbers now. Again, I see quite a number of members have gone out now shortly. Yes. Now I confirm that there are a few other members outside in the alternative chamber outside there. So therefore, I'll proceed and put the question, which is that the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 27 of 2020, be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Those of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Narcotics, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Control Act and for connected purposes. Order number 11, the Assisted Reproductive Technology Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2019, second reading.
Very well. That one is supposed to be moved by the Honorable Millie Odhiambo Mbona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker,
I'm very surprised that when I said that, many people quickly corrected me. I do not know how. Okay, let's
Mr.
proceed.
Speaker, Mabona is very important. So because I already have, I think, 4 or 5 names, it becomes a 6. Millie Grace Akoto Diambo Mabona.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I don't know with your kind permission if I can lower because I'm speaking for a bit. My mask? Thank you.
Honorable Millie.
I was requesting whether I could lower my mask because I'm going to speak for a while.
Well, we have agreed as a House that we will still listen to you and hear you well, even with the masks. I really do not know. Let's proceed with the mask. I mean, you are very close to the member for Nairobi there.
Thank you.
And
it's a bit of a challenge, but it's okay. I'll try. Mr. Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And Mr. Speaker, I move that the Assisted Reproductive Technology Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2019, be read a second time. Mr. Speaker, this is a bill that seeks to provide for the regulation of assisted reproductive technology, to establish an assisted reproductive technology authority, to make provision in relation to children born of assisted reproductive technology processes, and for connected purposes. Mr. Speaker, maybe I could give a little bit of a background. That, Mr. Speaker, there are several cases that have gone to the court that deal with issues of assisted reproduction. And Mr. Speaker, maybe I can explain the issue of assisted reproduction, is that we have instances where couples are not able to get children naturally. You find people who have been married 20 years, 30 years, and have been trying to have children and are totally unable. Mr. Speaker, currently in Kenya, assisted reproduction is not illegal, it is not unlawful, but there is no legal framework. So what ends up happening is a lot of couples go and seek medical assistance. They are able to get children, but then the children are not recognized legally. What then they have been forced to do is to go to court for the court to declare their own children their children. And sometimes it's even complicated, where you find that a mother, especially in cases of surrogacy, where a mother carries a child for another woman to term, and then because they have really bonded, they change their minds and now want their child as their own. So then we actually make the courts have the challenge and problem of dealing with those cases because they are not regulated by any law or any regulation. So it's a free fall. Everybody does what they want. People charge any fees they want. Patients can be abused in the process because there is no legal framework. The High Court requested Parliament to come with a legal framework to assist in issues of assisted reproductive technology, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, this law seeks to fill that void that the court has talked about. Mr. Speaker, as a Christian, I know there may be moral, ethical issues that may be raised. And Mr. Speaker, one of the things that I'm seeking to do is to address the moral, ethical issues, because we cannot bury our sons because the issue of assisted reproduction technology is going on, but it's not regulated. I have read the Bible, Mr. Speaker, both the Old and the New Testament, and there is really nothing in the Bible that precludes assisted reproduction technology. Mr. Speaker, in the olden days, because we did not have technology, people like Sarah Abraham decided to use the traditional process and got a woman for a husband, and that created conflict. Mr. Speaker, we know of women who cried to the Lord for years because they were not able to have children like Hannah, and God remembered them. Mr. Speaker, we are living in days when our faith may not be as strong as the Hannahs and the Sarahs of the Old Testament that could pray for until the 100 years and have children. And Mr. Speaker, I want to declare my interest because I do not have a child. I have not gone through the process of assisted technology because of lack of a legal framework. And Mr. Speaker, and that's why I'm saying and declaring my interest. Mr. Speaker, I want to say, other than the court, I want to give my own personal experience of this issue. That I came to this parliament when I was fairly still young, of a reproductive age. I didn't even think much about whether or not I'm having children. And the first salvo that was thrown at me when I wanted to vie for a parliamentary seat was that I cannot lead because I'm a lure. Lure in my language means a barren woman. And Mr. Speaker, you know, that's not a terminology. People even ask me how I mention it, because it's a terminology that people don't talk about. It is stigmatized. It is looked down upon. And I want to thank God for bringing me in this house at such a time as this for a purpose, that I may be able to speak on behalf of thousands of women who cry and who mourn in their houses and who have been divorced because they don't have children. Mr. Speaker, you have seen when I have a political disagreement with some male leaders, not MPs, like when I had a disagreement with Honorable Sonko. What he told me is I should not speak until I've opened my legs and given birth, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am a leader and I'm a strong woman. What about another woman who may not be as strong as me, and who is being derided, and who is being looked down upon, and who is about to be chased from her home because she's not able to open her legs and have a child? Mr. Speaker, I have seen in my own constituency that when I have public meetings, people will address me by categories. And I know that the issue of HIV and AIDS has been very stigmatized. Yet, Mr. Speaker, when I address the public, people will address me by their various categories. The women who are HIV positive, after I speak, people will come and say, we are the farmers, we are the fishermen, we are this and we are that. And the women who are HIV positive and who are on ARVs will stand up, Mr. Speaker, and they will tell me, Mr. Speaker, that we also want our voices to be heard because we are what is called Jondilo. Jondilo are the ones who swallow. They are not ashamed to say that they are on ARVs because they have HIV. And Mr. Speaker, because HIV, I'm giving the example of HIV, because it's one of the most stigmatized diseases. Yet, Mr. Speaker, one of the common things I have seen, that the women who have no children will not raise their voices because they are too embarrassed. They will hide and come and see me after everybody has gone, and they will whisper so that others don't hear. And they'll tell me, Mheshimiwa, we are low like you. We are barren like you. We don't have a voice. And Mr. Speaker, I am here to speak on behalf of all the laws in this country. Mr. Speaker, I was amazed at the number of women who have since come to me, not just women, but even men. When I brought this bill in the last parliament, about 3 male members of parliament came to me and told me they've had their children through assisted reproduction and it saved their marriage. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Joyce Lay, who was a member of this House, broke down and cried when she narrated her story of how she was not allowed to take her own child because the child was born of surrogacy, and it's the court who had to give her her child. Mr. Speaker, there's a woman member, I will not say who she is. If she wants, she can air her voice. She was not a member of parliament then. She called me before I brought this bill. Interestingly, even though I say I have an interest, but I brought this bill mainly because of the voices I heard from women. That woman called me and told me, Millie, can you please project our voices? I have gone through a horrendous time trying to have a child. Mr. Speaker, I am happy as we speak that she managed to get a child through assisted reproduction. And I also thank God she's now a member of parliament. I can see she's not here today, but I'm hoping that she will add her voice to this. A male member of parliament, in fact, he's not here, but he had told me he wanted to second this bill, has had triplets through assisted reproductive technologies. That is the reality. But not all the stories are rosy. When I brought this bill, a young woman, only 38 years, sent me a text and told me that she had been divorced because she cannot have children. I have even seen younger women who are being threatened with the divorce at 26, 25, because they've been married for 2-3 years and they don't have children. Mr. Speaker, I am here to say that God has made us fearfully and wonderfully, because the Bible says I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, with or without children. But having said so, Mr. Speaker, I am here so that the woman who may not have the level of confidence I have, and that do not care what you brand or don't brand her, and who may go to an early grave because of branding, may get a chance to be able to get children through assisted reproduction. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member that I'm saying now is in the House. She introduced me to a group of young women. And there were different women who have actually now formed a group, a support group of young women who are not able to have children. And I went to their group. One of them was also happened to be my relative. And I went to their group, and many of them were in tears as they were narrating to me their stories. Some of them have gone through this process 5-6 times. The average cost at that time was about $500,000 to $600,000 just for the hospital fee alone. But if you are to put all other costs, it goes even much higher. And when the process fails, you pay the exact same amount. So there are people who are paid up to 5 million Kenya shillings in trying to have children. Mr. Speaker, I am here speaking for them and on their behalf, and I'm urging members of Parliament that we pass this bill so that we can give those people opportunities and that we may save their marriages. Mr. Speaker, there's also an element of gender dynamics in relation to this issue, that for the medics who are here, they will let you know that sometimes it is not just the fault of the woman. Sometimes it's also the fault of the man. But the society does not care about that. If you read the poem, I think by Jonathan Carriera, called A Leopard Lives in a Moon Tree, it actually speaks to this issue. And it speaks to a man who is not able to have children, and he turns his face away so that his brother can sneak in and have or sire children with the wife. And he says the children are born with stripes which resembles his brother. And that's what he calls a leopard lives in a moon tree. And the leopard is basically helping him so that he can have children. In our traditional societies, because I think the last time when we were here, a lot of people were saying this is an African. For those of us who think it's an African, it's because perhaps you don't know your tradition. I have actually researched among several of our communities. This process was there, and this process was allowed in a lot of communities in varying forms. Mr. Speaker, I can tell you, for instance, amongst the Luo community, if a woman was not able to have a child, what the woman would do is to get a relative of hers, either the sister, a younger sister, or a niece, to have children with the husband, and those children are not considered the children of a sister or a niece. They will be considered her own children. And that woman will be there, not as a wife, but for purposes of procreation. And after that, they will be treated as house girls or housemaids who are sent here and there. Mr. Speaker, we are in a different world where we don't need to raise conflicts like the one of Sarah in the Bible. Through technology, we can now actually help. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the original version of this bill, it was written in vitro fertilization. I just want to thank Honorable Dr. Nyikal that he sat me down through his own initiative, actually, and there were several other doctors, gynecologists who are in this house in the last parliament, and they told me this bill is actually very vital. But I have since become very, very educated on medical terms, and they told me when you talk of IVF, it's only one form of assisted reproduction, that there are different forms of assisted reproduction, and hence we should be looking at a wider level, and that's why we actually have this no longer as IVF, but assisted reproduction technologies bill. We have since actually had a discussion with them, and either them or I will be proposing even further amendments based on even further research and practices that we have seen in other countries. And I'm hoping and encouraging members that will support this bill so that not only should we then abide by the court order, but that we will help those who need our assistance. Mr. Speaker, just to take the members briefly through what the bill is about. Part 1 is preliminary, which of course, as usual, have short title, commencement, interpretation, and application. Then Part 2 establishes the Assisted Reproductive Technology Authority. That would be a body that regulates assisted reproduction. And Mr. Speaker, right now, because there is no law, the things that the church fears can actually happen because there is no legal framework. We can actually have people mixing human gametes with those of animals, which for me is also an ethical issue. So this authority will actually be setting up regulations on what and what cannot be done. It will also be a licensing body that will be enabling people who actually practice this assisted reproduction. Mr. Speaker, currently we do not have any regulation. So we have people doing anything, even people who are not experts. And a lot of desperate couples are exploited in the process. Mr. Speaker, Part 3 highlights prohibited activities. When and how you can use an embryo, how long you can keep an embryo. It's suggested that you can keep for 10 years. Consent of parties, so that you do not have somebody using your eggs or your sperms without your permission. That Mr. Speaker can decide that I've seen Mr. Speaker sitting there. He's handsome, he's brilliant, he can manage the house well, and I somehow go and find your sperms to then create a baby. Now, this law seeks to protect that, so that nobody uses your sperms or your eggs without your permission, except by law. Mr. Speaker, it also talks about posthumous consent, whether or not that should be allowed, and if it is to be allowed under what circumstances. Mr. Speaker, I know this is a moot issue because I've been talking to a lot of people. The issue of assisted reproductive technology for procreation purposes, I have actually provided that it should be for procreation purposes only. I know the scientists and the doctors that I spoke to had told me that we need to open it up because of the issue of technology and research. If we limit it, means we cannot do research. Like, for instance, when we have COVID, perhaps some of those researches that we may do may help us. Mr. Speaker, it also talks of circumstances for undertaking assisted reproductive technology, where it is precluded, when it is allowed, prohibiting the taking of gametes from a minor, except maybe if they are sick. Mr. Speaker, the use of gametes. Then, Mr. Speaker, it also talks about, in Part 4, the rights of parents, donors, and children. And what it seeks to do is to confer legal rights on the child so that you don't have to go to court for an order. Perhaps I want to say that what this bill seeks is to entrench what we call gestational surrogacy, as opposed to genetic or traditional surrogacy. What that means, Mr. Speaker, is there are times when there's a woman who cannot carry a child on their own, but you will use somebody else to carry a child for you. What this bill seeks is to ensure that the person who carries the child should not be the bearer of the eggs, because it tends to create legal issues. Because if I have my eggs and I am the one who is carrying the child, then it means when I give birth to the child, I'll insist, because I'm the biological parent, that that is my child. So what we are seeking is gestational, so that the mother who is carrying for the intended parents has no biological connection to the child. Again, that one I will let members decide whether they want that or whether they want to expand it. Mr. Speaker, the other issue that it seeks to deal with, which I know we have not included here, but after further discussions, I think I will bring further amendments, is the issue of national and international surrogacy. Mr. Speaker, if you look at, say, a country like the United States, that a lot of the states allow surrogacy, yet actually if you look at the price, it's very prohibitive. On the other hand, a country like Sweden is still grappling with the issue of surrogacy, but for very interesting issues. I was talking to one of the senior officers in their agency, and what they were saying, the reason why they were not allowing is because they were saying that relatives can abuse that and force their own relatives to carry the child for them when they really don't want. Like they were saying, I can psychologically force my sister when she may not want to carry a child for me. But here instead, Mr. Speaker, instead of then leaving it open, then we need to provide by law. That's why I'm talking about fixing it to gestational as opposed to traditional genetic surrogacy. But Mr. Speaker, when it comes to international, again, I will leave this House to give me direction even as members contribute, because one of the things that if we find it acceptable, then we can consider what we call medical tourism. The reason why we find India is really preferred by a lot of Kenyans because of the cost of a lot of their processes. When I did my research, I discovered that in the US, the process of surrogacy would be something between 7.5 million to 15 million on the prospective parents. But in Kenya, if you actually look at the costs that we are hoping will be undertaken, it may be much, but it may not be prohibitive. Again, the bill seeks not to entrench commercial surrogacy, but to entrench non-commercial surrogacy. Again, I would love to hear members' opinions over that. And what that means is that if you use a surrogate, then you don't commercialize the process, but you pay only the costs that are related to your carrying of the child. That therefore means if this woman will be carrying your baby for 12 months, you must make sure that they are staying in a residence that you would love your child to stay in. If she's carrying your child for 12 months, they must have nutrition that is suitable for them. If they are carrying the baby for 12 months, they may be able to access clinics and all the medical facilities. And also, if they are working and they've stopped working, that you should be able to balance or compensate for the period that they are not working because they are carrying your baby. What it prohibits is putting a price. That I want a surrogate, how much does it cost to be a surrogate? 4 million, 2 million. So that people do not commercialize. And my thinking was, especially in a country where people are struggling, if you commercialize, then it is likely to be abused. But on the other hand, if we find a system that is friendly to Kenyans and even people who want to come from abroad, and with a proper legal framework, then others can come to Kenya for medical tourism that will then boost our economy. I know a lot of people have talked about the issue of trafficking. On the issue of surrogacy, it will actually stop trafficking so that we will no longer have miracle babies. If somebody were to carry your child and there's a legal framework, then we will be seeing and following this child for 9 months, not for 2 months like the miracle babies, where you then have children within 2 months. But we will know which facility you went to, because this law provides for all that, record keeping, which are of course then confidential. Mr. Speaker, again, I've also emphasized that it then talks about having very clear legal provisions about who the mother of the child is. Part 5 prohibits access to information except for valid legal reasons. Part 6 talks of licensing and the conditions for licensing and the conditions around which it can be suspended or stopped. And where the authority has gone beyond their powers, that you can appeal to the authority first and then to the High Court. Part 7 is general financial provisions, and Part 8 is miscellaneous provisions, which has offenses and general penalties. Mr. Speaker, I will stop at that and urge or ask Honorable Peter Owino to second. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Owino.
Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Speaker. I rise to second the Assisted Reproductive Technology Bill, 2019 National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2019. Mr. Speaker, this is a bipartisan approach. That's why the Chair for Health asked me to support this bill. It's not women or men affair. The Assisted Reproductive Technology, Mr. Speaker, seeks to regulate rights and obligations relating to assisted reproductive technology. It aims to regulate the use of assisted reproductive technologies to aid individuals or couples that have challenges conceiving due to factors associated with infertility.
Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, the bill aims to regulate the qualifications of health practitioners who administer assisted reproductive technology in order to protect recipients of the latter services. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to the provision of Article 118 of the Constitution of Kenya and Standing Order 127.3 of the National Assembly Standing Orders, the committee, through local daily newspapers on Monday 7 October 2019, published an advertisement inviting public to submit memoranda. Further, in the letter dated 5th of March 2020, the committee invited individuals and institutions to make presentation to this bill. Those who presented their memorandum, Mr. Speaker, include the Ministry of Health, Federation of Women Kenya Lawyers, FIDA, Family Health Options Kenya, FHOC, and the Kenya Medical Association. Also, the Center for Citizen Empowerment Program, PATH, Intersex Persons Society of Kenya, Kenya Obstetrics and Gynecologists Society, KOGS, and Christine Kipsang, who is an advocate. Mr. Speaker, the committee observed the following after having a lengthy discussion on this proposed bill. The Assisted Reproductive Technology Bill 2019 seeks to provide the regulation of assisted reproductive technology to prohibit certain practices in connection with assisted reproductive technology, and also to establish assisted reproductive technology authority, and to make provision in relation to children born in assisted reproductive technology process. Number two, we also observed, Mr. Speaker, that the principal object of the bill is to regulate rights and obligations relating to assisted reproductive technology. The bill also aims to regulate the use of assisted reproductive technologies to aid individuals or couples that have challenges conceiving due to factors associated with infertility. Furthermore, the bill aims to regulate the qualification of health practitioners who administer assisted reproductive technology. That is done in order to protect the recipients. Number three, Mr. Speaker, in addition, the bill contains provision that defines rights touching on, among others, issues relating to consents preceding assisted reproduction, like handling of embryos, which resulting from assisted reproductive technology. Also protecting the identity, status, welfare of children who are born of assisted reproduction. Lastly, it also have the duties of persons who undergo assisted reproduction and their legal status as parents. Number four, Mr. Speaker, the bill establishes an assisted reproductive technology authority to regulate the process, like licensing, standards, research, and infrastructure relating to assisted reproductive technology. The legislative scheme of this bill has been modeled in a manner that addressed the balance between the need to regulation of ethics and advancement of modern science and technology. However, Mr. Speaker, the committee noted that the Health Act 2017 enabled the Cabinet Secretary to establish directorate under the Ministry of Health to deal with the specific areas of health. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, and taking note for the need of rationalization of semi-autonomous state agency under the Ministry of Health, there were no sufficient reasons for establishment of the authority, as there were existing structures that could be realigned to take on the role of the authority, including the MOH Reproductive Health Unit. Mr. Speaker, number 6, the committee also observed that the bill lacked sufficient provision to deal with pertinent issues arising from assisted reproductive technology, such as the prohibition of commercial surrogacy, provision of compensation mechanisms, and also to ensure that service is not exploitative in nature. The need for prohibition of sex selection and the abandonment of children when they are born. Number 7, the Speaker, the committee also notes that Section 11 of the Births and Deaths Registration Act needs to be aligned with the proposed bill to allow the registration of children born of assisted reproduction by commissioning parents, as currently provided. Registration can only be undertaken with surrogate mother, and this has posed great challenge as the biological parents have to undertake the legal adoption process in order to be registered as parents. Number 8, these are committee observation. The committee finally noted that Senate was in the process of considering the Reproductive Health Bill 2019, whose objects is to provide for rights and reproductive health care, to set standards of reproductive health, also provide the right to make decisions regarding reproductive health, and for the connected purposes. But this bill seeks to provide legal framework for enforcement and implementation of reproductive health and assisted reproduction is one of the areas it touches. However, the National Assembly bill specifically deals with assisted reproduction and does not delve into the entire realm of reproductive health rights. In this regard, some memory was not relevant. Mr. Speaker, I want to join, sorry, there's a change of guard. Madam Speaker.
Yes, there's a change of guard.
Sorry, I didn't look out for long. From the Health Committee, Madam Speaker, we are pleased that the bill is before this House for the second reading. It is long overdue, and I wish to thank the originator and the committee for this bill. And as the originator have said, Madam Speaker, this, in many families, causes a social distress. It causes also economical distress, because some families are paying too much in order to realize children. It can also go as well as having medical implications and relationships. One of the things that human being despises the most is rejection, which has been seen in many families. And as the originator said, Madam Speaker, we are in a global village, and many countries have structures and laws to guard this. The committee, however, at the committee stage, will have to do some amendments, especially on the international connections, commercialization of the activities versus compensation is very touchy, and also how we can hold account those who are recipients and not get away with the children who they are already contracted to bear for the 9 months and give birth to. So there are some gray areas which we implore all members to think around so that we can get together in form of amendment. But I think this is a good bill. It will bring dignity to both women and men in their families. It will also bring social order when it comes to the desires of family making. Right now, many families are broken. Many are already divorced. Many are separated, and many are in traumatic circumstances because of the rejection phenomena, which I said earlier. So, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of my chair, Sabina Chege, and the entire committee, I want to say I support the bill. I second the bill.
Okay. Order, members. I therefore go on to propose the question, which is that the Assisted Reproductive Technology Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2019, be now read a second time. Honorable Kaki, you want to speak to this one? Okay.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I would like to also make a few comments in supporting this bill moved by the Honorable Millie Odhiambo Mabona. Honorable Speaker, I would like to just state that in the 11th Parliament, when I was Chair Health, the Honorable Millie Odhiambo made attempt also to push for this matter regarding assisted reproduction. So, Madam Speaker, I would like to say from the onset that I support this bill. I know that it is a bill that requires a lot of consultation so that matters to do with assisted reproduction can be done in an ethical way. But I would like to say that I really support it. Having looked at what the committee has been able to do, all the institutions that they were able to meet, from the Ministry of Health that has given its in-depth analysis to this bill, and also shown where there could be pitfalls, and there are suggested amendments that I believe are likely to come through the Departmental Committee on Lands. The county governments having interacted with it, different women organizations and institutions that seem to be supporting this bill also, but also offering their guidance on areas that need to be changed. The Kenya Medical Association, and in the 11th Parliament, Honorable Speaker, I remember that we had the Honorable Nyikal, who kept saying that this is a wonderful bill because assisted reproduction is happening in our own constituencies, in our villages, and in an haphazard way, that people make decisions and they agree and they implement, and at times it goes quietly. At times, when it comes to registration of these children, it happens with a lot of hidden information, where children are, where the registration officers just identify the mother, father, in a way that is not legal, but just to say that this is already happening and it is important that we have a legal framework, as the Honorable Millie is saying. I listened to her as she gave her own account, and I would like to thank her very much for being forthright and straight, because there are many women who have reproductive issues, many who may not have the courage that the Honorable Millie Odhiambo has, giving herself as an example, and to say that, Madam Speaker, I know of so many women, young women in their 20s, in their 30s, who are struggling to have children. So this is a matter that needs to be taken up by this House. I've seen also an individual, Madam Speaker, a lawyer, who also went through this in depth and gave very strong recommendations. Madam Speaker, I have heard the mover and also the seconder talk about being careful about research in this area, because, Madam Speaker, this is an area that can also be highly misused, especially for the children who are born without a clear legal framework. Madam Speaker, I would also like to agree with the Honourable Millie that I think she was trying to give an example of exactly what is happening in her area, and I would like to say that within the Kamba community, assisted reproduction is happening in an old and traditional way, where if a mother does not have children, the lady is allowed by the family to bring another woman as a wife, in quotes. And then this woman, it now bears children on behalf of the woman. And Madam Speaker, with the current concerns and with the contemporary society, I think this is now going to be a bit too old and not easy to implement, and also with the current status of the economy. I would like to say that this bill, Honourable Speaker, is long overdue. As the Kamba community, we may not be able to continue with the Kaweto concept, where the woman bears children on behalf of the woman who cannot have children. So it is important that we get a legal framework as women of this country, that people can have children without having to go through the traditional approaches, which are very difficult to implement within how they are able to purchase the equipment, what kind of medicine is required in this, and ensure that we also learn from the international community. There are so many countries that are struggling with this, as the Honourable Millie Odhiambo has said. There are countries that have already gotten a way forward on how to deal with assisted reproduction, but I would like to say that, yes, as a country, we can learn from countries that have already succeeded, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill, as I have perused through it this morning, it seeks to regulate rights and obligations relating to assisted reproductive health for individuals and couples. And Madam Speaker, I know when it comes to for individuals, I think it will go beyond the Ministry of Health towards Ministry of Labour and the social welfare of the children, especially when we talk about an individual who would like to have children, and I'm sure this can be taken care as they move to the next step where they'll be doing amendments. I have also seen, Honourable Speaker, Madam Speaker, that this bill is dealing with the qualifications of the health practitioners. As I had said earlier, there are many individuals who are involved in assisted reproduction and taking advantage of the fact that there is no law. So this bill is going to ensure that they are qualified medical practitioners, identified by the ministry, registered by the ministry, who have the right technology to be able to assist, and also to ensure that we protect the rights of the recipients so that it does not bring destruction that was not anticipated. Madam Speaker, the authority, as far as the bill is concerned, is supposed to regulate to regulate the processes, ensure that there are proper standards, ensure that research is being done in an ethical way. And I would like to say that my contribution to this is that all this can be done within the Ministry of Health without having to come with an authority, which will require a different budget and also some different autonomy, or an autonomous institution which may require a different budget. They can enhance the budget from the ministry. Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the Honourable Millie Odhiambo for coming up with this bill again and say that I support it. I support children. I support women, more so women in this country who are suffering, that do not have children, who are struggling within their marriages. I would like to say that as a House, let us take this opportunity to make sure that we support this bill with all the amendments that will make it better, but make sure that this bill that the Honorable Millie Odhiambo has tried to push through this House, I think this is the third time that it sees the light of the day. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity.
Let's have the Honorable Nyikal Wambura. Daktari.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity, which I really appreciate. Madam
Honorable
Speaker,
Sankok, you're walking in with a lot of noise, and
Madam Speaker, let me start by really congratulating.
you seem to be consulting with yourself as you walk into the House. And it's not allowed. You can only consult with other members, not with yourself, as you're shouting. Let's have Honorable Nyikal, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I start by actually congratulating Honorable Millie Odhiambo for actually persisting and bringing this bill back. Madam Speaker, this bill, the main object is the regulation of assisted reproduction practice through technologies that are actually varied from in vitro fertilization, where the ovum is fertilized outside and introduced in the womb, in the mother, artificial insemination, where you actually take semen and introduce it into the mother, even intracellular fertilization, where you actually take out the ovum, take a single sperm and inject into it and then introduce it. So they are varied, and there are very many of those technologies. Madam, this bill is important, is needed, because a lot of couples actually suffer. Men suffer equally, although their shame can be hidden by the women in tricky ways, as has been said, but it is there. And women suffer a lot, and infertility is a big issue in actually practice of gynecology. And therefore, there is need to solve that problem for the families that are involved. Madam Speaker, because of that, and the technology exists, it is going on in this country without any regulation at all. And the problem with that is that this causes a lot of distress to the people who are involved. It becomes very expensive because they have to go to other countries, they have to do it in a hidden way, and therefore the few people who are doing it are actually extremely expensive. If it is regulated and done openly, then obviously there'll be no problem. But worse, Madam Speaker, all the undesirable aspects of assisted reproductive technology are actually now not outlawed. And therefore, even if things go wrong, the practitioners may not be taken to court because there will be no law they have broken. I think, to me, that is actually the biggest issue we need to address. And this bill does that. It establishes an authority that sets the standards of practice. Because again, some people will suffer. Even people who are not qualified will try to do it. And people suffer, people can die from it. Because the processes, some of them are extremely critical. And this authority will also set the processes of licensing who can do it, and licensing what institutions can do it, and in what circumstances it can be done. And, Madam Speaker, it also outlaws all the practices that arise from all the issues, whether they are moral, whether they're just legal, whether they're just social. And, Madam Speaker, there are many, many issues around this. For example, Madam Speaker, the obtaining of sperms from young people or from males, there has to be a law about it. We have sperm banks, but there's no law that is regulating that. the obtaining of ova from girls, this which actually involves some form of operation. And this I know is being done illegally, and women can die from that. Obtaining of embryos, and when these embryos are obtained, or gametes. Gamete is when you have put the ovum and the sperm together at the early stage, it's a gamete. Later on it becomes an embryo, which is actually a viable living organism. How are they kept? How are they utilized? And for how long will they be kept? Madam Speaker, that is extremely important. What about the donation of them? What about the banks? What about the consent? At what age should a boy or a male be allowed to actually donate sperms? At what age should a female be allowed to donate the ova? So those are issues that will be addressed in this. And Madam Speaker, even after you've done that, if the children are born, you have issues to begin with of parenthood. If you get a sperm from one person, an ovum from another person, introduce it into another person for a couple, whose child is it? As it is now, there is no law that clarifies that. We have to go to court, and even the courts don't have clear guidance because there is no law. Madam Speaker, in some of it, it is possible actually to do a sex selection during the process. So many embryos will actually, some will be thrown away because people are selecting the sex. But an embryo is the beginning of a human being. Do we just throw them away because we want a particular sex? That is actually important. Madam Speaker, if you come to parenthood, as I said, whether it is fatherhood, motherhood, again, if a woman carries an embryo to term, is the child hers or the person who donated the ovum? So that is an issue. What about fatherhood? Can you imagine the situation where a young person, maybe in university, donates a sperm, and being not careful, years later, he is faced with the situation that you are actually the parent? How will that person be protected? And how do we protect them actually from exploitation? Madam Speaker, the use of the embryos themselves, or the gametes, if you have the embryos, and I tell you this is the beginning, you can actually start to clone human beings. Because if you want embryo at an early stage, you can divide it into the numbers you want. And up to a certain number, you will have actually identical people, and you can put them back. Where shall we stop? That has actually to be looked into, and this is what law. This law will help us with that. Those embryos, we also call them stem cells. They can actually be developed to produce organs at one stage, and you can have organ transplant systems being created around it. People can start to even export them so that they're used to create organs that are sold. At this moment, we do not have any law, Madam Speaker, stopping us from doing that. So people may say for moral issues, for legal issues, we will say we shouldn't go into it. But remember, that opens a space for other people to do it because there is no law they are breaking. So we need to bring that into being. Madam Speaker, think of the research itself. People can start to cross. Maybe I'll ask for one more minute. People will to start cross species. You can have human ova being crossed with an animal one. You don't know what such people can do. There has to be a law that is stopping that. And Madam Speaker, the information that the children will need later on, and the information that the parents will need, we need to have a law for that. 30 years later, what is happening? People may even want to donate, say, like sperms can be kept when somebody is sick and is feared they may die. to be used posthumously. What is the law? And when you talk of parties, is it only married couples that will actually be allowed to do this? What about couples that are not married? What does the law say? And even worse still, what about same-sex couples? They may want to have children. So what? We need the law. And Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, what about the commercialization? Are you going to give sperms for fee, eggs for fee, embryos to be sold? How do you do that? In surrogacy, are you going to do?
Finish in a minute, Honorable Nikal.
Madam Speaker, we need the law to help us with all these areas. In fact, all the fears, whether they are moral, whether they are religious, whether they are legal, whether they are social, if we don't have the law, then they are open. Anybody can do anything. And for that reason, Madam Speaker, I support this bill and will call upon my colleagues, let us support this and put this practice in order to be done legally within our country. All other issues like tourism, those are secondary, but this law can look into them as well. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Chacho.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to support this bill. From the outset, Madam Speaker, I strongly support this bill. And I want to appreciate Honorable Millie Odhiambo for this bill on the assisted reproductive technology, which is Bill number 34 of 2019. Madam Speaker, Honorable Billy, and I've had a pleasure of serving with her since 10th Parliament. And she's a special lady. Madam Speaker, most of our bills and the law she has passed focuses and is tailored for the most needy and vulnerable members of society. I still remember bills about children that she passed, and many others, similar ones. I may have to state, Madam Speaker, maybe a few years ago, while I was serving with her in this house, and we have been serving uninterrupted for that period anyway, I met a lady, Madam Speaker, who is not even a Kenyan, but who had a child with somebody, and that somebody is not taking care of the child, and the child was still suffering. And I really felt who can help her. And I remembered of her NGO, Cradle, which I've been associated with just because both of us used to work in civil society before we came to Parliament. And I went and shared with her that story. And through our intervention and our NGO, that woman got assisted. The child is one of the best schools in Kenya today, and that child's suffering ceased. This bill is very similar to that. Madam Speaker, this bill is trying to provide legal framework for us to have assisted reproductive health technologies and services in this country. Not only having legal framework, but it requires the government also to invest in this reproductive health need. Madam Speaker, in short, it's called ART. It alleviates the burden of infertility on individuals and couples. Madam Speaker, it takes away the personal grief and suffering that it causes such couples who are infertile and not able to have children. Madam Speaker, in our own culture, you know how those ladies who are infertile, especially like at least among the pastoralists, there's grief and the suffering they go through. Madam Speaker, they have very low standing in the society. They cannot inherit the husbands. Most likely, the husband will go for a second wife because they must procreate and have children. It is likely to even end up in separation or divorce. Madam Speaker, it's really a big grief for these people. And we all know so many such people, Madam Speaker, in our constituencies and in our regions. Madam Speaker, if this bill will enable them to have children and take away all that personal grief and suffering, I have every reason, Madam Speaker, to support this bill. Madam Speaker, this technology is the only hope and only means for such infertile couples to have children. Madam Speaker, in 1978 is the first time a child was born through ART technology. Since then, Madam Speaker, 1.5 million children have been born globally, being assisted by ART. Madam Speaker, according to World Health Organization, 60 to 80 million people experience infertility globally. Most of these people, Madam Speaker, live in developing countries like Kenya. Madam Speaker, I've heard of some arguments against this ART, or assisted reproductive health technology, especially for developing countries. It's argued that, Madam Speaker, since we are already overpopulated, we should not enable more and more women, even those infertile ones, to have children, because it will increase our population, and because of that, it will create more and more problems for us. Madam Speaker, it's also argued that since we have so much limited resources in our countries, we should use our resources for more other useful health concerns, but not this one. Madam Speaker, it's also argued that maybe, since we have so many challenges in our health systems, this may not be a healthcare priority for these countries, which is total bullshit, Madam Speaker, total nonsense, Madam Speaker, because those parents,
You may want to use a bit of
okay, Madam
proper
Speaker.
language, Honorable Ganyu.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, I think that argument is so misplaced, and it really does not hold any water. Madam Speaker, because those couples have right to have children. Those couples have right to be like any of us, be in a position to have children and be able to procreate as the rest of us. Madam Speaker, we have enough resources. It's only that we are selfish and we don't use it strategically for the need of for the most marginal ones in our communities. If in Kenya we are stealing 2 billion shillings every day through corruption, Madam Speaker, how can you argue that we don't have enough money available for us to assist these very vulnerable members of our society? Madam Speaker, surely...
Honorable Mulele, what is out of order?
The honourable member for Chachu is a ranking member of this House. But is it a fact that...
He's a member for North Hall.
For North Hall.
His name is Chachu.
Chachu, the member for North Hall, the biggest constituent in this country. But is he in order to state as a fact on the floor of this House that we steal 2 billion shillings every day? Is he in order?
Madam Speaker, I really respect...
Chachu, I'm sure you cannot substantiate that.
Madam Speaker,
So
I really
you must
respect
rephrase your statement.
Honorable Mulele's point of order on this, and it will not be easy for me to substantiate the obvious at this particular minute, but I will graciously withdraw for the sake of enabling me to continue.
To what you can substantiate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I really strongly believe we have enough resources to invest in this healthcare need for the most vulnerable members of society. Madam Speaker, and I really have passion for this because many years back, Madam Speaker, I was in the university, I had a friend, and after many years, I remember visiting the US, and I do quite many times, and she did not have a child for many years. And after a few years, when I went back, I discovered and I was told she had some problems. But through assisted reproductive health technology, today she has 2 beautiful girls, and most of them are in senior high school in the US. It's possible. It's doable. I think also our women who are having these challenges, and even men, Madam Speaker, because I'm told even men have similar problems, through this can have children and live a very dignified life. For this, Madam Speaker, I strongly support. Of course, there are some moral and ethical reasons that people argue against them. But for these fundamental reasons, Madam Speaker, even being a very strong Christian, I fully support this bill. I thank you.
Honorable Denita Gatti.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for granting me the opportunity to support the Assisted Reproduction Technology Bill by Honorable Millie Odhiambo. Madam Speaker, Millie Odhiambo has passionately pushed for this bill and the recognition, Madam Speaker, especially for women, Madam Speaker, because issues in fertility, funny enough, are considered women's issues. Madam Speaker, in our culture and in our society, when a couple does not have children, it is usually a problem of the woman. Madam Speaker, hardly does society think that men can be infertile or men cannot reproduce, Madam Speaker. And therefore,
Madam Speaker, for me, this is a very genuine bill, and is a bill that is seeking to protect families, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I served with Honorable Millie Odhiambo in the 11th Parliament when we had the Honorable Joyce Leigh. And Madam Speaker, Millie Odhiambo has pushed this agenda in this House, Madam Speaker. And for me, Madam Speaker, allow me to say that Millie Odhiambo, the Honorable Millie Odhiambo, deserves recognition, Madam Speaker, because she speaks for women of this country and men of this country, Madam Speaker, who have found it extremely difficult to conceive and to have children in this country. Madam Speaker, infertility issues is not just a matter for women. The fact that the bill, Madam Speaker, is seeking to provide a legal framework that is going to guide and govern how this work is happening, Madam Speaker, will definitely cushion women, and especially women, Madam Speaker, because women are the majority who are seeking these services in this country. Madam Speaker, I've had the opportunity to live away out of this country for quite a long time. And Madam Speaker, the issue of surrogacy. The issue of surrogacy, Madam Speaker, is recognized in so many other countries, developed countries, and there's nothing like a fuss out of it. Women are getting services of other women who completely decide out of their own volition, Madam Speaker, to help a woman conceive. Madam Speaker, if you go into rural areas, Madam Speaker, where we come from, in our communities, leave alone Nairobi, Madam Speaker, because Nairobi, nobody really cares. Go to the rural villages where we come from, Madam Speaker, and you see how women are suffering in the hands of their mothers-in-law, in the hands of their fathers-in-law and their families, extended families. You will see, Madam Speaker, that this bill speaks for that Wanjiko in Isebania, that Wanjiko in Turkana, Madam Speaker. Because women who are unable to reproduce or have children, Madam Speaker, look at even how they are referred to. Derogatory words, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, a woman who does not even conceive or have children, look, even when she is dead, Madam Speaker, where is this woman buried in our community? Extremely terrible. We come from communities, Madam Speaker, where we have seen these things happen. And Honorable Millie Odhiambo speaks for so many of us women in this country, Madam Speaker, who actually are seeking this kind of recognition, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill, the fact that it's going to establish an authority, this authority, Madam Speaker, guides, because, Madam Speaker, we have seen. I happen to sit with Millie Odhiambo in the same technical group that is actually called the Reproductive Health Bill Technical Group, Madam Speaker. It is a WhatsApp group in this country that comprises of women and men who are passionate about reproductive health. And, Madam Speaker, issues of surrogacy and issues of these are reproductive health issues, and these are issues, Madam Speaker, that are in our Constitution. Madam Speaker, we cannot talk about health in this country without addressing reproductive health. And, Madam Speaker, health is a devolved function now. And I'm happy, Madam Speaker, because if I look at this bill, you will realize, Madam Speaker, that the bill addresses the issue of Assisted Reproductive Technology Authority, establishing that authority, Madam Speaker, and also in line with our own devolution principle, it goes ahead, Madam Speaker, in Part 3 to say that the authority may establish such branches or organs, Madam Speaker, in this country, to be able to reach people mashinani, Madam Speaker, women who are suffering in the hands of their mothers-in-law. And, Madam Speaker, you know, rural settings it's serious business if you do not even have a child, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is a bill that, for me, as you can see, has actually gotten endorsement from the various recognized women's rights organizations, Madam Speaker. It has, including the FIDA. Madam Speaker, these are strong organizations that protect the rights of women. And for me, it is not just a bill, Madam Speaker, it is a bill that seeks to protect the rights of a woman in marriage, Madam Speaker. So that, Madam Speaker, if I am not able to conceive, how then can I actually still keep my marriage and still continue to realize a family, Madam Speaker? And we have seen the cases of divorce in cases where women do not conceive. And for me, Madam Speaker, people must start looking at the issue of infertility as a joint issue, Madam Speaker. It is not that if a marriage happens and a child does not come out of it, it is a problem of a woman. Madam Speaker, we must protect women, and especially women of this country. But Madam Speaker, this is a bill that is helping our mothers, is a bill that is helping our men, Madam Speaker, because men rarely talk about infertility issues in this country. Madam Speaker, through our group, technical working group on this bill, Madam Speaker, we have seen there are so many other institutions, Madam Speaker, in this country. One of these institutions is known, the waiting wombs. Madam Speaker, if members do not know, there are these organizations that seek to help women. One of it is the waiting wombs, where women who are unable, or even men who are unable to conceive, Madam Speaker, share their experiences in this country. Madam Speaker, we must regulate, we must help our people, Madam Speaker, to live a dignified life as people. Madam Speaker, I am happy because if we are seeking to establish this authority, Madam Speaker, we are not only looking at the women and the men, we are looking at how to protect the children that come out of this kind of assisted reproduction, Madam Speaker. What are the rights of these children, Mr. Speaker, as enshrined even within the Children's Act itself? Because those children that come out of this kind of union have rights that must also be known. Madam Speaker, the Honorable Joyce Ley, in the 11th Parliament, also gave extremely harrowing experiences at the hands of the surrogates, Madam Speaker. And we were here in this house, and every member of Parliament could shed tears in this house. Madam Speaker, I'm happy that she eventually got her child, and she went ahead, and now she's happy with her child. But Madam Speaker, how then can we help in such situations if we have a law that really guide how all this work happens, Madam Speaker? Then we would not be talking about issues of divorce. We would not be talking about issues of misunderstanding within our own families. Barrenness, Madam Speaker, in this country is taboo. It's taboo. It is stigmatized. A barren woman is divorced immediately. You're married. Even before, Madam Speaker, they even find out who is the problem. Is it the man or is it the woman? It is usually the woman must be divorced. Madam Speaker, we must protect our women. We must ensure that even their rights, even within marriage, Madam Speaker, are protected, so that, Madam Speaker, the whole issue of family goes on very well. We cannot live in families, Madam Speaker, where you are living there as a woman and you are thought of as the one who has a problem, and you are living in a situation where you are embarrassed before your in-laws. So, Madam Speaker, for me, this bill is a bill that's going to give reprieve to so many women and so many people, and it will obviously, Madam Speaker, bring what we are calling the social order, the way society must live. In my community where I come from, Madam Speaker, I come from the Kuria community. And like the Honorable Chair for Lands said, just like the Kamba community, when a woman is unable to conceive, Madam Speaker, and she has come of age, she is allowed by my tradition to basically marry another woman, you know? And this is a woman who now bears children out of, from her husband. You know, and then the whole issue of life continues, Madam Speaker. So it is a culture that is there. But, Madam Speaker, how do we enhance this culture in a more modernized way so that everybody feels okay? So that our people who are seeking these services are not, harassed or exploited, Madam Speaker. We are looking at the issue of exploitation. If health is a devolved function, how can we ensure that this health care also reaches majority of our barren women and infertile women who are in the rural areas where we come from? So, Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, allow me to really support this bill and thank the Honorable Millie Odhiambo for speaking for so many women and men of this country who could otherwise not speak, Madam Speaker, on this issue. Madam Speaker, I highly support.
Very well said, Honorable Gatti. Let's have the Honorable Bayaya.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to speak on this bill, a very important bill for this country. And I would like to appreciate and applaud the Honorable Millie Odhiambo for this effort. And I would like to say from the onset that Kenya actually requires this law. And the reason is that it will help to stabilize families. Families that are in distress, that are in dire straits because of childlessness. But with the advent of technology, and I think that is the beauty of living in this world today, that technology has come to solve the problems that we have. And one of them is this assisted reproductive technology that we have today that can actually be used in this country to ensure that families become stable. There are many families today that there's a lot of discord within the family because they've never had a child. Either the man is unhappy or the woman is unhappy because either of them are unable to have a child. The family back at home, the in-laws and all that, are looking at this woman in their family and say, look at this woman, she came in here, but she's not helping to grow this family. But then we have an opportunity using assisted reproductive technology. The problem is we do not have a legal framework. The opportunity presented here by the Honorable Millie Odhiambo is that now we're going to have a legal framework that can help these families have children. But Madam Speaker, we have had a lot of depression cases in this country, a lot of them. We have had suicides that have come out of depression. We have had people suffer from high blood pressure because of these issues. When we solve this problem by ensuring that there's a legal framework, we're actually going to see probably a decline in number of depressions in families, and also to see a decline in the cost of seeking medical care because of high blood pressure and all that. Why? Because we are giving a solution. So this parliament, the 12th parliament, needs to go into history, that it actually came for the country. It came through for the country by ensuring that we have a legal framework. I've seen the report, and I've read the report, and I've seen several recommendations that have been done. But I would like to say this. Today, there are very many families. I've been to a country called India, and if you get there, you see that there are very many specialized clinics for reproductive or assisted reproductive health. But when you go into those clinics, you see a lot of Africans, but you see many Kenyans. Many Kenyans who live this country carry a lot of millions of shillings into a country like India to ensure that they seek these services. And, when they do that, medical tourism benefits India so much. But they do not seek it here in this country because it is expensive. For the few doctors that practice here, it's very, very expensive here in this country. But they spend a lot of money going to India to seek this. But with a legal framework that is being that has now started the journey in this house, we are going to see the reduced cost and also allow doctors who are specialists in this area to actually set shop here in this country. There are many other young doctors in this country who have trained in this area, but they are unable to practice because we don't have a legal framework. And they have to borrow legal frameworks from other countries to be able to operate. Now, what I believe is that with the introduction of this bill and eventual enactment into law, we are going to have many doctors able to assist. Many Kenyans have to travel to Nairobi actually to come and seek these services because it's only in the city. But with a legal framework, we'll be able to have doctors empowered and able to set shop in other parts and other cities in this country to offer this service. Madam Speaker, I'd like to draw your attention. There's a lot of exploitation of young girls in this country. But the few doctors that we have who offer this service, because they will bring girls and harvest their eggs. They harvest an egg from this girl who may not even understand what it is that is going to happen. But these doctors will earn millions of shillings out of this one egg or these several eggs that they have harvested from an innocent university student. This university student will be given lunch and probably 10,000 shillings and go. And thinks that, of course, I've earned something. But even to protect the donors and the people who help the processes, we need this legal framework that is being proposed today in this House. I want to say this, Madam Speaker, that the question of whose child it is probably will be sorted in this law. If you have donated an egg, if you've donated a sperm, and somebody else has carried that baby, whose child is it? And this law will sort it out. Again, the question of surrogacy. If you've watched this movie, The Bow Breaks, which is a popular movie that actually depicts this surrogacy thing, you see the pain and the suffering, both the mother who was a surrogate and the couple that was waiting for this baby. You see the pain and the suffering if you watch this movie. And actually, it's a classic when it comes to these issues of assisted reproductive health. And therefore, I want to say that this law, I have read it will give the rights and responsibility of both the mother or the family and the surrogate mother and all that, so that we remove that. In Africa, a child that you have carried in your womb, whether the sperm came or the egg came from someone else, will definitely be called your child and will have some attachment. But this child, you've given it out there, it could bring a lot of stigma such that many couples or many willing surrogate mothers may not want to be surrogate because of the stigma that may be associated. And I think this law tries to sort this out. But I have a question that probably the Honorable Millie Odhiambo may want to consider. Is this only for married people? Or young ladies who do not want to get married today may want to establish families? I'm a Christian and I profess the Anglican faith. And the idea of family is a father and a mother and a child. So today, if a young lady who does not want to get married decides to go for IVF or assisted reproductive health, do we people who are able to go out there and buy children, they do it because probably they don't have a child. But child trafficking is becoming very lucrative business. But those people who can afford to spend millions to buy a child, I also believe, can spend some money to go for assisted reproductive health. Probably we will reduce the crime of child trafficking. And therefore, this law will sort out a lot of the issues that we have in this country. Madam Speaker, I want to say that there are very many families, very many, who go through a depressing journey of trying to get a child. That depressing journey, again, when you decide to go for assisted reproductive ART, you actually start another depressing and frustrating journey to ART. Because one, it becomes expensive. You have to travel outside the country. If you want to do it here in this country, it becomes very expensive. There is no framework. And you eventually get a child, and then you have to go to court to claim that child as yours. That is where I think we need to stop. If you are frustrated in getting a child yourself, you should not again be frustrated in trying to get ART services. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and pray that members support this bill and the issues that come out are sorted out and we're able to have a law that will help families and stabilize families in this country. I thank you.
I'm sure Honorable Millie is speaking the questions and the issues. So you make sure you participate in this to the end so that we can be able to collate everything. Very important points. Honorable Maoka Maure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the moment to say a few words about this bill. First, I would like to state that it is a momentous moment for this House to actually join hands with Honorable Millie Odhiambo in putting this issue into legislation. And Madam Speaker, we need to remember you can have the ideas, but you don't concretize it into legislation. And that's why we need to thank her for putting the effort and the time and the passion and the commitment to ensure that we have this law in our statutes. And, Madam Speaker, the issue of barrenness. Those of us who are familiar with very many characters and very many figures in the Bible, we remember about the woman called Sarah. There's Rebecca, there's Rachel. And in about 2 occasions, they combine the husband and the wife, like they have with the Zechariah and Elizabeth, and the birth of John the Baptist. They were old, both of them. And for the birth of John the Baptist and the miracle that happened after the prayers in the temple, plus also Elkanah and Peninnah, about the birth of Samuel. If you read the whole of the first Samuel 1, you'll find the description of the agony that Hannah went through praying, up to an extent of somebody in the temple describing her as drunk. Now, I've just mentioned that, Madam Speaker, to note that our traditional villages or beliefs are not alone when they stigmatize the issue of barrenness or lack of children and then blame the woman. But thanks to modern science, it has actually indicated that the majority of the barrenness in the family is actually from the man. And it is possible with this bill that there are scientific methods of enhancing the chances of couples being able to have children. So as we deliberate on this piece of legislation, we must be more emphatic about the limits and the sanctions involved in this piece of legislation or that we are about to introduce. And also emphasize that in our traditions, in our religion, we also recognize the steps made by modern science. As we do so, we are able to run away from this idea of trying to stigmatize women as being the source of barrenness in the family and ensure that this stigma is removed by adopting or embracing science. As we embrace this science, we should not lose sight about abuse. And I have noticed almost every speaker has also emphasized about the commercial aspect of it, about the criminal aspect of it, about the regulations we ought to put. If it is a child born out of IVF, for example, or a woman comes and she wants to get into the conception through the sperms of a stranger, what are the regulations? Will she turn out to be Angoro Didiga? That after a short while, she wants to know who is the father?
Honorable Mauka,
Yes.
Maure, I'll stop you there. I see you have very good points, so that you don't cut them short. You have a balance of 5 minutes when the debate is back in the House. So I think it's better for you to stop there and just reorganize your thoughts so that you can pick up from where you've left it because of time. And for the, you can sit, Honorable Mauka. And for the bill, we had a total of 3.5 hours. We have a remainder of 1 hour 58 minutes. That should give sufficient time for all these ideas to come together. I know some members like Honorable Mule has a business idea around the issue. Others have medical aspects of it, economic aspects, and all this. And like Honorable Gatti said, that Honorable Millie deserves a part in the back. This is one of those. This is one of those issues or debate that typify giving a voice to the voiceless because of the stigma around fertility issues in our society. So I'm sure members and those who've not been able to speak, you can plan to make sure you are in the House to follow when it comes back in the order paper so that you can give your good ideas. And with that, honorable members, the time now being 1:01 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Thursday, 13th of May, 2021, at 2:30 p.m.